The number was written in blue ink, small and careful, on the back of a grocery receipt, and when Ryan found it in the pocket of his jacket, his first thought was that it had to be a mistake. His second thought was far more dangerous. Because for the first time in 3 years, something inside his exhausted, grieving heart dared to hope. Before we dive deeper into this story, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet miracles that sometimes find us when we least expect them. Ryan Mitchell never imagined he would be raising a 5-year-old alone in a small town outside Columbus, Ohio. 3 winters ago, his wife, Claire, had passed away suddenly from an undiagnosed heart condition, leaving him with a toddler named Caleb and a grief so heavy it felt physical. Every morning since then had begun the same way, the shrill sound of his alarm at 5:30 a.m., the ache in his chest when he reached for the other side of the bed and found it cold, and the silent promise he made to Claire's memory that he would do his best. But doing his best often felt like barely surviving. He worked long shifts at an auto repair shop, hands permanently stained with oil, shoulders tight from stress. He rushed home every evening to pick Caleb up from his mother's house, where she helped as much as she could. His mom, Patricia, was in her late 60s and had her own health issues, but she adored her grandson and insisted on being there. On Sundays, Ryan would take Caleb over for dinner, and Patricia's house would fill with the smell of roast chicken and nostalgia. It was there that he first started noticing her friend, Margaret Lawson. Margaret had been Patricia's church friend for years. She was in her early 50s, with soft brown hair always pulled into a low bun and eyes that seemed to listen even when she wasn't speaking. She began coming over on Sundays to help Patricia in the kitchen, though Ryan often suspected she did most of the cooking. She would kneel down to Caleb's level, asking about his toy cars, laughing at his dramatic reenactments of superhero battles. She never pushed herself into Ryan's space. She simply existed in it, steady, warm, kind. Ryan assumed she was just being polite. Maybe she felt sorry for him. One rainy Thursday afternoon, Patricia called and asked if Ryan could stop by after work. She sounded tired. When he arrived, he found Margaret already there, sorting through pill bottles on the kitchen counter. Patricia had been feeling dizzy again, and Margaret had taken her to the doctor. Ryan felt a wave of guilt crash over him. He was supposed to be the one taking care of his mother, yet here was this woman stepping in without hesitation. That evening, as he was leaving with Caleb asleep in his arms, Margaret handed him his jacket. Later, when he reached into the pocket to grab his keys, he felt the folded receipt. And there it was, her number. He stared at it for a long time, sitting in his parked truck under the dim streetlight. He convinced himself she had probably written it in case of emergencies regarding his mom. That was logical. Responsible. Safe. But then why had she underlined it? For 2 days, he wrestled with it. His mind was a battlefield between loyalty to Claire's memory and the lonely, human ache for connection. He hadn't been on a date since before Caleb was born. He barely knew how to talk about anything other than car engines and daycare schedules. What if he wasn't ready? What if she was just being nice and he misread everything? On Saturday night, after Caleb had fallen asleep clutching his stuffed dinosaur, Ryan sat at the kitchen table staring at his phone. His thumb hovered over the screen. Finally, with a shaky breath, he typed a simple message thanking her for helping his mom and asking if she'd like to grab coffee sometime. The reply came 20 minutes later. She said she would love to. Their first coffee was at a quiet cafe in downtown Columbus. Ryan expected awkwardness, forced smiles, the heavy presence of his past hanging between them. Instead, there was a gentle ease. Margaret didn't try to replace Claire. She asked about her. She listened when Ryan spoke about the night everything changed, about the fear of raising a boy alone, about the guilt of sometimes feeling overwhelmed. She shared her own story too, how she had been married once, how she never had children, how she had spent years caring for her aging father until he passed. There was something profoundly healing in being understood without being judged. Over the next few weeks, Margaret became a steady presence. She would bring over homemade soup when she knew Ryan had a long shift. She helped Caleb with simple reading exercises, her voice patient and encouraging. And one evening, when Caleb scraped his knee and burst into tears, it was Margaret he reached for first. Ryan watched from the doorway, his throat tightening, as she held the little boy gently and whispered reassurances. That was the moment he realized the number on the receipt had never been about convenience or obligation. It had been about courage. Margaret later confessed that she had seen how tired he looked every Sunday. She had noticed the way he carried the world on his shoulders. Writing her number had terrified her, but she had done it because she believed no one should have to fight so hard alone. Ryan began to understand that loving again didn't mean forgetting. It meant allowing the heart to grow around its scars. Months passed, and the house that once felt silent and hollow began to fill with laughter again. Caleb started calling Margaret Maggie, and she would beam every time. Patricia watched it all with quiet gratitude, knowing her son had found not a replacement, but a partner in healing. The day Ryan proposed was simple. No grand gestures, no crowded rooms. Just the three of them in the backyard, fireflies flickering in the warm Ohio air. He knelt on the grass and told her that she had walked into his life during its darkest chapter and written more than a phone number, she had written hope. If this story has touched your heart in any way, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Stories like these remind us that love can find us again, even after unimaginable loss. And before we end, I have one special request. Comment, "Second chances are real," if you believe that kindness can change someone's life. Because sometimes, the smallest gesture, a handwritten number on the back of a receipt, can become the doorway to a brand new beginning.